Alright, this is the deck tech for my Rapheal Fiendish Savior list. I've had this list for quite a while, so here we go. What does Rapheal do? Well, he says, other demons, devils, imps, and tieflings you control get 1/1 and have lifelink. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature was put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, create a 1/1 red devil token. When it dies, it deals 1 to something. So you can discard cards, you can even mill yourself during your opponent's turn and make devils. Like, this guy can poop out devils pretty damn quickly. I like this deck because it's one of the few Radicos decks. It's like him and maybe like one other character or one other commander that can really gain you a lot of life. Like, this deck can gain you crazy amounts of life. So here's the list. 1 of a Dark Ritual, adds 3 black. You know it, you love it. Fatal Push, destroy target creature if it has mana value 2 or less. Destroy if it's 4 or less if you lose a permanent during the turn. Forsworn Paladin, Menace, pay 1, create a treasure token. Target creature gets 2/0 until end of turn. If a mana from a treasure was spent to activate, it also gets Death Touch. Inquisition of Kozilek, discards a card from their hand that's a non-land card as long as it costs 3 or less. Pilfering Imp, flying 1/1. He's an imp, so he synergizes with our commander. And you sacrifice him, you Thought Seize him for free. Or like no life loss. Thought Seize, pay 1, discard a card, take 2. Goldhound, First Strike Menace, he's a treasure. Tiefling Outcast, double team. If you attack with him, you get another one. Other demons, devils, imps, and tieflings you control get 1 attack. So he's a lord. Half-lord effect. Horde Robber, deals damage, creates a treasure. Power Word Kill, destroy target non-angel, non-demon, non-devil, non-dragon. Destroys a creature. It's pretty versatile, but those are some pretty strong creature types, so take that with a grain of salt. Valky, God of Lies, also has Tibalt, Cosmic Imposter. If you play Valky, he can steal a creature card from your opponent's hand and then turn into that creature if you pay the mana cost for it. And then Cosmic Imposter, you get an emblem. You may play cards exile with Tibalt, Cosmic Imposter, and you can spend any type of mana on him too, so he can steal pretty much anything, and it's pretty easy for him to do. His +2 is exile the top card of both players' libraries. His -3 is exile target artifact or creature, and then his -8 is exile all graveyards, add 3 red. Pretty simple stuff. Big Spender is whenever one of your team members, any creature, as long as he's out, attacks, and they get blocked, you get a treasure. And then you can discard. You can sacrifice your treasures and get anything from his spellbook. His spellbook's pretty mediocre, so don't even really worry about it. He's mostly here because he's a devil with haste that gives us treasures. His spellbook is very non-important. Karlach, Raging Tiefling, First Strike, Rage Beyond Death, Specialized 6, and you can activate this if he's in your graveyard. So I do this because he gets like 2 lives, and we do both the red and the black one. The red one is he can grant something perpetually can't block, so they can't block forever. And then the black one is sacrifice a creature, you lose 2 and draw 2. So he does a Sign in Blood. Tibalt's Rager is a devil and has the same devil effect. When he dies, deals 1 to anything, but he has fire breathing, so he gets 2/0. Torch Fiend, destroys artifacts if you pay 1. If you sacrifice them, pay 1. Angrath's Rampage, sacrifice artifact, sacrifice creature, sacrifice planeswalker. Pretty good stuff. Kroxa, I haven't updated this list in a while. You could probably change a few things here, around there, and there, but that's neither here nor there. Kroxa comes into play, discards a card from your opponent. If they discard a land, they lose 3 life, can escape from the graveyard. He's the counterpart to Uro. Radicos Headliner has haste. It's a 3/3, and his echo cost is discard a card. Echo means you discard the card next turn, and if you don't, you sacrifice him. But if you do, you only have to do it once, and he's definitely worth it. This card, I think, just even in any sort of Radicos list, this card's an absolute powerhouse. Especially in this list because we got a Lord effect with him. But if you get this guy out early, he will win you the game quite quickly because he promotes a lot of damage very early. Arcane Signet, you know you love it. Adds 1 mana of any color your Commander's Identity, Cold Steel Heart comes into play, tap, pick the mana, mix that color. Black Market Connection, sell contraband, you lose 1 life, make a treasure. Buy information, draw a card, lose 2 life. Hire a mercenary, create a 3/2 shapeshifter with changeling, so it's all creature types. The problem with this card is you can't really play this card unless you like gain like quite a bit of life. Otherwise, this card will kill you. So be careful with that. It's good though in a lot. And if you can play like, if you play it like in this deck, or you play like a Black White Angels list, or some way of giving your guys lifelink, or a Cats list, like an Abzan Cats list, this card's a powerhouse. Keep that in mind. Falaka's Predation is MDFC land. Discards a card if it's mana value 3 or greater. Phyrexian Arena, draw you at the beginning of your upkeep, draw an extra card, lose a life. Furious Rise is if you begin the end step, if you have a creature of power 4 or greater, you exile the top card of your library until you exile another card with Furious Rise. This card's pretty sweet because you can pocket away something. Even if you lose a creature with the 4 power, you can still play it anyways. Professional Facebreaker, one or more creatures deal damage, you get a treasure token, has menace, sacrifice a treasure, pocket draws, does the exile draw. Sim Prodder, you look at the top card, you reveal the top card of your library. Your opponent may have you put it into the graveyard. If they don't, you put it in your hand, otherwise it does damage equals to its mana value. Spiteful Prankster has first strike as long as it's your turn. When another creature dies, he deals 1 damage to a player or planeswalker. Valakut's Awakening, again, red MDFC. Put any other cards from your hand from your library, bottom of the library, draw the main cards +1. Witty Rosemancer deals damage when creatures enter play. Zurzoth makes you devils. When your opponent draws their first card during each turn, if it's not their turn, you create a 1 red devil. And whenever one or more devils you control attack, 1 or more players, you and those players each draw a card, then discard a card at random. So this guy can make a buttload of devils if you're playing real Commander, but in this, he makes devils consistently. He's okay. I don't really like this card that much, but he's devils, so. Bedevil destroys target artifact, creature, and planeswalker. It's kind of hard to cast because it's 2 black, 1 red, but I still think it's pretty decent. It's kind of a pain to cast. Crucius, this guy got nerfed like crazy because he used to be a 3/3. But at the end of your end step, you may discard a card. If you do, create a treasure, and then you choose Ambitious or Expedient, and you seek a card with a higher or lower mana value. Ambitious being higher, Expedient being lower. Omnixilus the Adversary. This card's pretty strong. He can make a copy of himself if you casualty him, and his plus is each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. If you control a demon or a devil, you gain 2 life. And then he can make a devil, and target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life. Replicating Ring, it's a mana rock. Eventually it pops and makes 8 of itself. Skyclave Relic is Darksteel Ingot, except you can kick it and get 3 of them. Grim Hireling, whenever your opponent, or whenever you deal combat damage with a creature, mind you, if you have first strike, you get this effect twice. Same with a Professional Facebreaker. You get 2 treasures instead of just 1. And then he can sacrifice X treasures. He can minus our creature. So he's kind of removal. Hound of Night's Reach is just at the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent discards a card for each shrine you control. Ritual of Soot, destroy all creatures with mana value 3 or less. Spawn of Mayhem as Spectacle, which means if you dealt damage to him, you can pay a lower cost of mana for him. He's got Flying and Trample at the beginning of your upkeep. Spawn of Mayhem deals 1 damage to each player. Then if you have 10 or less life, put a 1 counter on him. He's pretty good. Big Score, you discard a card, draw 2 cards, create 2 treasures. Hellrider, this card's like an MVP. Hi, viewer. Thank you for coming by. I'm just doing the deck tech right now. I built this deck a long time ago. So Hellrider has haste. So whenever a creature you control attacks, Hellrider deals 1 damage to the target player or planeswalker you're attacking. Each creature. So if you have like 6 creatures, he deals 6 extra damage. Storm's Wrath, board wipe, deals 4 damage to each creature, each planeswalker. Torbane amplifies red damage by 2 points. That's what he does. Zerial, Archduke of Avernus. Creatures you control get 1/0 and gain haste. So she's a haste enabler. She's pretty good. She makes a devil, and then you get an emblem. At the end of your first combat phase, you get an additional combat. Untap your team, additional combat. Garna, Bloodfist of Keld. If you watched my previous video before this, I talked about this card. Whenever another creature you control dies, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, Garna, Bloodfist of Keld deals 1 damage to each opponent. So she either pings things or draws you cards. This card's pretty tight. I was actually thinking about making a deck around her sometime. Prosper, you know him, you love him. This is probably the strongest card from the D&D set that he's from. Death Touch, Mystic Arcanum, you exile the top card of your library. If you play something from exile, he makes a treasure token. Doom Whisperer, just big demon, 5 mana, 6/6, flying, trample, pay 2 life, surveil 2. Surveil 2 is look at the top 2 cards and either put them in your graveyard or keep them on top. Painful Quandary, whenever opponent casts a spell, they lose 5 life unless they discard a card. Burn Down the House either deals 5 damage to each creature in each planeswalker, or you make 3 devils, and they have haste. Pugnacious Pugilist has Blitz, so you can pay 4 mana, send him out, he dies, you sacrifice him at the end of the turn, and you draw a card. If he dies, you draw a card as well, even if you don't sacrifice him. But when he attacks, he makes a devil. Tybalt, Wicked Tormentor. This is an arena-only card because he spawns cards into the game. You add 2 red, and then you draft a card from Tybalt, Wicked Tormentor's spellbook. You can get a lot of different devils with him. There's Chain Brute. He's actually just pretty solid even by himself anyways. And then he can deal 4 damage to target creature or Planeswalker unless he has him deal 4 damage to the player. And then if they do, you may discard a card and you can draw a card. So he can cycle, loot your hand a little bit. And then he, minus X, creates 1/1 devils. Angrath Flame Chain. Each opponent discards a card, loses 2 life. He can gain control of a target creature, so he active treasons. If it has less than 3 mana value, you sacrifice it before you give it back. And each opponent loses life equal to the number of cards in their graveyard. This is -8, so it probably wins you the game, depending on how long the slugfest has been going on. Burning Rune Demon is, you play them, you search for 2 cards, your opponent picks one, you keep the card that they pick, and then you discard the other one. Dreadhound is, whenever a creature enters or goes into the graveyard, or dies, or put into the graveyard from the library, each opponent loses 1 life. He's here because he's a demon dog, and he mills 3 cards when he comes into play. So if you're lucky, he can actually deal like 3 damage right away. Charmbreaker Devils, he returns a random instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand, and then whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, he gets 4 attack until end of turn. Fiery Emancipation makes all of our damage triple, so each 1 damage actually turns into 3 damage. That's how this card works. So if you deal 1 damage, it's actually 3. So if you swung it with a 3/3, it does 3, or it'd be 9 damage, but it's 3/3/3. Not 9 total, like at 1 chunk, it's 3/3/3. Okay, then we got Radicos the Showstopper, Flying Trample, he's a 6-drop, and then when he comes into play, you flip a coin for each creature that's not a demon, devil, or an imp, and then destroy all the creatures that come up tails. Sometimes if he's feeling generous, he can literally wipe your opponent's board and they'll cry about it. Star of Extinction, blow up a land, deals 20 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. Probably kills everything. Ulamog, Ceaseless Hunger. Most decks should probably, if you need just a big dumb curve topper, here's your ticket. When you cast him, exile 2 permanents. Indestructible. When he attacks, exile the top 20 cards of the library. Devil's Play is just an X spell, but you can play it again for X flashback. First, it's 1 red and X, deals X damage to any target. Flash it back, 3, and then X, deals damage to any target. Perforos Intervention. Our last list went over this in the Gruul list, but we'll go over it again. Create an X 1/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Or it deals twice X damage. This is one of the best red removal spells in the entire game that we have so far. So if you play red, you should play this card, period. It's really good. Shatterskull Smashing, you can pay X, and if X is 6 or more, it deals damage, twice as much damage. So if you pay 6X, it deals 12 damage to up to like 2 creatures. You can split it and be like 9 damage, 3 damage, or 6 and 6, or 8 and 4. That rarely ever comes up. We just play him as a land usually. Agadeem's Awakening is a black land. It's a mono black land. You can pay 3 for it to come into play untapped. But if you don't, it's a mass reanimation spell. Where if you pay 6 for it, you can grab a 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. But they all have to be different mana costs. Or if you paid 3 for it, it'd be 3, 2, 1. Orcus, Prince of Undeath. This card's really strong. I think it's the strongest rare from this D&D set that it's in. It's 5/3 for 4, which you don't have to pay X for if you don't want to. It's got Flying and Trample, and then when it enters play, choose 1. It's a board wipe. It's a Toxic Deluge, except you don't pay life for it, which is -X until end of turn. You lose X life. Well, you pay life for it, but you don't pay it. Like, you can't just pay a bunch of life. You got to pay mana too. And then return up to X target creature cards with total mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. They gain haste until end of turn. So this card is absolutely mental. This card is very, very strong. He's a very good curve topper. You pay like 14 mana for this dude. He can bring back an entire graveyard. They can all swing and probably wins you the game. Like, this guy's strong as heck. And he's legendary too, so you can actually play him as your commander. Then we got mana base. 9 swamps, 10 mountains. We got Takanuma, Abandoned Mire, brings back a guy. Gave the Hive Tyrants a 3/3 with Menace. And he exiles cards when he attacks. Castle Lock Lane draws you cards. Bazooka Bog exiles the graveyard. Den of the Bugbear is a 3/2, and then when he attacks, he makes a goblin, which is a 1/1. Tokunza, Crucible of Defiance, makes 2 spirits if you pitch it. The channel effect. It's 2 1/1 spirits. I think they get haste too. Yeah, they get haste. And then we got double colored lands. Arch of Araska, if you have City's Blessing, you draw a card. Bonder's Enclave, if you have creature power 4 or greater, you can draw a card. Command Tower makes each color of our commander's mana identities. So he's a red-black, it makes a red-black. Crawling Barrens. Put 2/2 1/1 counters on him, and eventually this card just gets really big. It's a man land. And then we got Demolition Field, blows up a land, brings us a basic. Field of Ruin, same thing as Demolition Field, the timing's a bit different. So that's the deck tech. So let's go ahead and get started. We're gonna play some Brawl. Mind you, this deck is old, so I haven't changed it yet. You could change it around, but I think a lot of it stays with the way that it is. Trust me, this deck is really, really good. When I first played it, I went like 7-0. I played this deck for like a month and a half straight, and I had probably roughly a 60 to 65% win rate. So it's actually quite solid. You just gotta be willing to stick it out with the deck. I like it because it's Radicos and it actually gains you life. Devious Mischief. This is a really good commander too, Yasharn. I'll probably actually show you my Yasharn deck tonight, too. Which we'll have to do the deck tech for, and then we'll go ahead and I'll switch over to that one too. Yasharn's a really good Selesnya commander, because when you play him, he grabs you basic lands. So he just enables any deck. Okay, we play our pathway, which can be either black or red, but not both. Player Forsworn Paladin, say go. Opponent draws. Oh, this guy stops treasure tokens too, and your opponents can't play or players can't play life. So a lot of the Zendikar lands that pay 3 life or this play you can't do that. Send 3 in the direction, say go. Like I said, we play Big Spender mostly because he's got haste and he's a 2/1. But his spellbook's pretty underwhelming. Heraldic Banner is probably pretty much the best card that you get out of him. Maybe besides Key to the City. Fountain of Renewal is a nice little pet card of mine. I do like that card. Fountain of Renewal it just gains you 1 turn, and then you can pay 3, sacrifice, and draw a card. At the beginning of the turn, it gains you 1 life. Key to the City makes something unblockable, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And it can draw you cards. Most of this guy's stuff is pretty underwhelming. We play him because he's a devil and he has haste. That's why we play him. If you really need to sacrifice your treasures, to get maybe like Stuffed Bear, because Stuffed Bear is not terrible. Okay, 2 and 4. That's kind of big. Hold on, we're gonna send the team first. Play Phyrexian Arena, so we can grab an extra card per turn. We already got him down 10 health, so I'm feeling pretty good over here. Like I said, this deck's pretty nuts. If it curves out, it has a very hard time losing. And it can kind of go toe-to-toe going second, but not quite. It's definitely a like pretty much any deck in this game, but let's be serious. Alright, play Solemn Simulacrum. That puts a land into play, and then when he dies, he draws you a card. That's what that card does. But if you play green-white, Yasharn is a very good, just a good stuff commander, because whenever he comes into play, he grabs you both a basic lands, a basic plains, and a basic forest. And the rest of his text is kind of, and basically, to summarize, it fucks over treasure tokens and they can't pay life. But you can't either, because it's unilateral. We send our whole hand away with Valakut. Send the team. They block, it's whatever. Okay, they kill our guys. Got a little bit reckless there, but this deck literally has 1 year to go. We don't have a break, and we don't know what that means. So you go big or you go home with this list. Like literally send them, unless it's like completely idiotic. Like, every single creature they have is bigger than yours. Then you don't do that, obviously. Then you let them back in the game a bunch of life, kind of. I was trying to get Scoot Swarm going. If we don't find a board wipe, we lose because it's Scoot Swarm. Pretty lame card, but it would have thought, right? And another card. Look at this. Pilfering him. Hang tough. Because otherwise we're gonna start dying. They got double land drop this turn because of whatever this fabled passage. We're gonna draw 3 cards next turn, so maybe we can find a land. Or not a land, excuse me, a board wipe. We got a few in the list. We could play some of the black ones. You could definitely warrant playing some of the black ones. I don't in this list because we play a lot of damage additive effects. And we're playing a lot of creatures, so we don't actually want too many board wipes, but you could definitely make a, if you wanted to, you could add more board wipes. It's just, it's like, you can't really beat Scoot if they play Scoot. Unless you use a board wipe, you have to. Because you really, unless we, would have kept our team and kind of, not been so aggressive and then played Rapheal and gave them all lifelink, then maybe we would have been alright, but we weren't, so.
cat dinosaurs? I love Victoria. We will adapt to any threat.
We may as well block the Scoots horns here, because literally if we don't get a board... Okay, we got Ritual, so we're good. We'll just create the treasure. Hey, Raphael. Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yasharn shuts off treasures. Forgot. My bad. That's something you gotta be careful with. Like, if you play Yasharn, don't play a bunch of treasure stuff. Because you can't use them either. Get Scoot Swarm back. Do the shit all over again. We should be alright, though. Because they're still pretty far behind again. Grabs another land. Makes 4 Scoot Swarms. That's the problem with black market connections too. The card is forced. You have to pick a mode. You can't just not pick one. It really sucks.
Every day is a new mutation.
Okay. I'll take 6. Rapheal. Land. That's right, you can't even sacrifice them. Yeah, they got us. Yasharn kind of like blocks a lot of our treasure strategy because you can't even sacrifice them. Because you can't sacrifice things with Yasharn either. Just usually this bottom part doesn't really come into play too often, but when it does, it's pretty good too. Because he has a stack. Stacks means that you can't play the game. Like, when you have stacks pieces, it causes you or your opponent not to be able to win. Some way, shape, or form. Yeah, now we can't block, so that's fine. On the next one, that one we lost. It is what it is. We probably lost. We started losing when we got too reckless with our attack. That's definitely where we went downhill. We should have just kind of hung out. Because you kind of want to play the grind game with this deck, too. Like, I did say we have 1 gear go. We do, but at the same time, we don't. I was a bit too reckless there. Especially since they got Scoot Swarm. We are our next opponent. This is a Resurgent Animist. She, like, when you play lands, she... Yeah, land enters battlefield, you add a mana, then if it's the second time, you look for an elemental or a land. So again, some sort of landfall commander kind of lane. But yeah, I would say Yasharn is probably like one of the strongest Selesnya commanders in this game. Like, dude, that card's really good. The simple fact that it grabs you lands constantly. Like, you'll be, like, you can play anything with him because he grabs you so many lands. Alright, we're going to get rid of Sword of Fortune here because it gives protection from red. Which protection means it can't be affected by that color. And affected by, I mean, it can't block, it can't attack, or, it can't block, it can't be blocked by, it can't damage, it can't be affected by. So, actually, I messed up. Play tapped. if you have 2 or more lands, or more than 2 lands. So I accidentally messed that first. But we don't really have a drop, so we're fine. But yeah. So that's something you gotta like, be careful of. These lands, not to mess up with them. But that's what protection means. It basically means the card can't be affected. And if it affects it directly, then it can't affect it. And protection from red's particularly strong, because a lot of red removal, even if it's a board wipe, is damage based. Which, like, protection, like, if you have, like, protection from white, and you get hit with a white board wipe that's, like, destroy all creatures, it technically doesn't affect the card. It affects the board state, but doesn't directly affect the card. That's where protection doesn't work. Is if it doesn't directly affect the card, then it doesn't work. I hope that makes sense.
Reinforcements will drive them back.
Not fail. Rise, my elemental friend.
You will die regretting that.
Go ahead and kill their Spring Bloom Druids. They want to waste their Snakeskin Veil by all means.
Fight for Avernus, you fiend.
Yeah, I forgot. This guy's not reach.
Harness the elements.
Fucking kidding me. God damn it. Ugh. Keep falling behind.
I have eternity to get my vengeance.
Have it every time.
Shall conquer you.
Looks like we're falling behind, viewer. We are falling behind. I should have just gave it. Didn't find nothing, viewer. Well, he did, but I mean, they're gonna probably. I was thinking about grabbing Omnixilus, or not Omnixilus, Radicos Showstopper. Fortunately, they got there before we did. Yep. I'm not gonna wait through that. I'm just gonna take it. Turns anyway, so go ahead and call it there. Lost 2 of them so far. We're gonna pull it through, though. We're definitely gonna pull it through. Yeah, so I think maybe we'll manage out some wins. Jewel 65. Depending on how far I think we can get it. Hopefully we can get ahead of this guy this time. These are some pretty cool sleeves. We're bound to win a few of them. Like I said, this deck's pretty damn good. I'm not too worried about it. I don't really see this card that much. Calfee, Beloved by the Sea. Of the Sea. This guy's pretty cool, though. He gives, basically gives your enchantments and creatures ward 1. Kind of. He gives the old version of ward. He can get big pretty quick, too, because he's just like, the one guy, what's his name? Daxo. Want to take another hit? Not really. Blow everybody up. Whatever, because they're probably gonna Fossa anyways. And then do the Circumender thing, probably get Kraken up to too big to kill, so. The sucky thing about the red board wipes is like 5 damage to the whole team. The plus to them is they hit planeswalkers too, so they're a lot better against Super Friends lists, but the downside is still that 5 toughness, or 5 damage is not that much damage half the time. Very easy to outpace that. Oh, witness protection. This card's nuts.
Ever my horns and hammer. No fire, no steel.
Luckily, Ingrath lives to see another day.
Blade, swine.
We can get another activation out of him, so I'll do all three. Play the land. Discard the
No
card.
fire,
Let's
no
do the
steel.
2. We're only gonna do 2 damage. We're gonna Devil's Play that Moon Snare Specialist, because that has to die. Otherwise it's just gonna keep bouncing our creatures, which that won't. I'm gonna play Rapheal. I don't know, viewer. Might be coming up us soon. No. Heuristic Study. Whenever we play a card, if we pay an extra 1, if we don't pay an extra 1, they draw a card. If we do, then they don't. Okay.
Fire and fury.
Yeah, Fury. Master Wind. Draws 2 cards. Do all 3. In this deck, you can kind of get away with it. Maybe you might want to hold off every once in a while on doing all 3, but more often than not, you can do all 3. And it doesn't feel bad. Fiery Emancipation. Pay the 1. And everything does 3 times as much damage. Send just the Shapeshifter. There, we gain 12 life. We don't have to care. And Thought sees that right away. No secrets here. Keep forgetting that Heuristic Study is in this game. That card's kind of annoying. Or I kind of strongly dislike it. I think this is a random uncommon from the set that's This is a random uncommon. Yup.
Blows temper the blade, swine.
Yeah. Shiver me timbers. Swim, swam, trunks.
No fire, no steel.
I swear they even like made that stuff as annoying as possible too. Like they could make it like a sensible card, and then you have to click it twice. Twice! Twice! You know? It's like, what the heck? What the heck? Good old stacks pieces. Especially old school ones. I love to see it. Anyways, we're sending lethal their direction, so they have to block. We're gonna life again, viewer. Yeah, like I said, this list's pretty good. Still sends the whale anyways. You lose the game. Cool, we got him. First win. Mono blue. Like I said, this deck's got legs. I wasn't lying. I wasn't lying when I told you that. I'm not too worried about that. Like I said, hopefully we can get this next viewer win. Our next win viewer, I should say. Keep stuttering over my words. Sorry, I'm kind of tired. I've been streaming for about 5.5, 6 hours before this. 10-ton tapir. Go. They're playing Feather. Feather's a really cool card. Feather is when you target your stuff with combat tricks, instead of putting it to the graveyard, you exile it and then you like return it back to your hand. Combat tricks are those cards that like target a creature, it gets 3/0 until end turn. You know, that's what I'm talking about. This guy can reuse combat tricks. I used to actually play him in Constructed because I have 4 of Feather. Actually, I think Feather's female, so gotta be careful because they already have 2 mana up, so they can probably defend Feather anyways. Okay, good. This is our chance to get him. Kill Feather, which we have to, because Feather will get out of control pretty quick. Feather is a really cool card. I encourage you, if you got a few extra rares lying around, like, if you play this game at least, I don't even know if you do, because you don't say anything, but if you do have a few extra rares lying around, Feather's a really fun card. I think you'll have a blast playing it. Or playing her, I should say. Hit him for 15. That sword a once and future. This is a pretty cool sword. I actually have this card. I just don't play the swords too much. Fragments Reality. Karash. Or Kurlock. You don't send them. You don't say. Damn. Muscovy is welcome. That draws a card when we play like a 1 or less. Do the damn thing. Do all 3. Zerzal sounds like a really bad medicine that like 15 years later, like a bunch of lawyers come up and like, have you taken Zerzal lately? That's what he sounds like. That's what his name sounds like. Like he's a bad medicine. Have you taken Zerzal lately? Are your eyes dilating in the middle of the night? Can you not poop in a straight line? These may all be side effects of Zerzal. So please, contact Hubert and Water Bottle for legal financial advice. Hubert and Water Bottle will help you win. You know what I mean? That's what he sounds like. That's what his name sounds like. We'll probably switch decks after this last game. So we went 2 for 2, 2 losses, 2 wins. Like I said, this deck's pretty fun. Depends on if you play Magic the Gathering or not. But if you do, I encourage you to try maybe this deck. This deck's pretty sweet. It's one of the few Radicos decks that can gain you a buttload of life. That's what I like about it, because otherwise I don't really like playing Radicos. Because I like gaining life because it gives you time to shore up. And then you shore up and then you don't have to like worry about dying right away. So you can kind of sit there and turtle up. Angraph's Rampage. This is usually pretty good against we'll just kill Snarl. This is good against Mana Rock. That's part of the reason why I run this. Only uncommon it's good against Mana Rock, so you can probably play Shieldred's Edict nowadays because it's an instant, so it's just like 50 times better. Because I usually don't care about instant speed too much, but because there's so many protection spells nowadays and counter spells that are like, especially in green. Green's got buttloads of 1 mana protection spells. I mean, black does too. Usually the black ones, they'll like die and then come back to life. Green just has like Snakeskin Veil. There's like Tyvar's Last Stand, Tamiyo's Safekeeping. There's tons of them nowadays. There's another one too. Out of those 3, there's like another one too. It's only 1 mana. It's like a common. It gives like Hexproof and Indestructible. And I think situationally gives stats. Then there's like Heroic Intervention, which does it for the whole team, including your lands too. There's something like Jeweled Snakeskin. It's from one of the D&D sets. It's Heroic Intervention, except it's 3 mana. It's like the Yang Twine Snake Keepers. It's the Snake People, like, named after them. I played D&D once. I bought some books for it one time, but I only played it like 1 time. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Furious Rise. Don't draw from it because we don't have 4 power or greater. But yeah, this card's pretty sweet. It's pretty good in any sort of power 4 deck or more. You consistently have 4 or more power on the board. This is an extra draw per turn and it's free. So, and the plus is a lot of those like types of effects, they'll replace the cards in the zone, but Furious Rise doesn't. Like, it doesn't replace it until you cast it. That's one thing I do like about the card. So if you get like a really important piece to your deck, or like a really important board wipe, or a really important removal, you know, all those really important cards, Furious Rise won't screw you over. Alright, we gotta be careful. This is when we start toning off. I'm picking everything up. Otherwise we'll end up like killing ourselves. So. Like I said, this card is definitely, you don't want it in decks that you can't game. This is like one of the only Radicos decks I'll ever play this card in, is this deck. Otherwise, I would avoid this card like the plague. Because just getting a treasure per turn, it's not bad, but... 3 mana just for ramp, it's not great. It's not bad either, I guess. But...
Here, you must no fire, no steel.
And this is a great excuse to play this Angrath Flame Chain. Back when I started Arena, like, I always wanted a 4 of this guy. I never did it yet. I could do it, but I don't feel like he's good enough anymore, per se. And it's because he's 5, I have to play him in Historic, and Historic is so freaking fast nowadays. Maybe I'd try him in Explorer. I mean, Explorer doesn't seem that much different from Historic either. It just seems like Historic without the arena changes. Which, honestly, a lot of the arena card changes I like. Like the changes to One Ring, the changes to Orcish Bowmasters. I think Orcish Bowmasters Let me think here. Do steal them, do 6, 9. Yeah. Actually blitz this dude.
No fire, no steel.
Like I said, the last time I remade this list was like the D&D set. So there's plenty of new cards that could definitely come into this list. But I like I said, I've had this deck probably crafted this iteration of it. Alright, hopefully we don't die here. There's plenty of green haste nowadays, so that's definitely something we gotta be careful of. Like Tyranna Hex and stuff. So we'll see what happens. Questing Beads isn't quite enough. Oringal Hex isn't quite enough. Tyranna Hex is enough. The Tarask is enough if they cast it. The Tarask is from the D&D set too. He's a 10-10, cast him, he gets Ward 10, and when he attacks, he fights. Seems like they're looking to blow up a land. Oh, he had the Fallen Barrens.
No fire, no steel.
We can blow it up here. It's worth a shot though, because it is lethal. And we still get a land out of the field too. I don't think those have haste. Grab a red source here. We need more red than we do black. This deck's actually red dominated. Put him in a really bad position. I don't think he can grab it.
You don't look scared.
One,
I can fix
2.
that.
No low mana haste. waste, unfortunately.
I was
We'll
bored
sink 'em.
anyway.
Grab 3 devils. Not that big of a deal. We're trying to win here, so. Green doesn't have any stifle effects. A stifle effect would counter the ability. When it doesn't counter spells, but counter abilities.
Scream
When I say
once
stifle
for
effect, that's what I'm
more.
talking about. So if they kill any of the devils, they die. Because they're gonna take, we can point the 1 damage at their face. Pretty tense here though, because we only got 5 life. So, and there's plenty of green haste nowadays. I don't think black has any haste in this game. I don't even know if there is any haste in Magic in black. I think there probably is. Somewhere throughout Magic's history, there's some sort of haste. I refuse to believe that there isn't. Alright. Alright, that's fine. Here's what we do. We just hit him.
No fire,
They lose 2
no
life.
steel.
Thanks for playing. Well, I guess you're not saying anything. I was gonna say, I might... Yeah, let's do another deck. Again, we'll do a deck tech, and then we'll play a few games with the deck, and then I'm going to go ahead and call it off. I appreciate your time, viewer, nonetheless, though. I really do. Thanks for stopping by. Oh yeah, I was going to show you the Yasharn list. Hold on a second. This is like a Yasharn control list. Luckily bailed out of that. Because I gotta do the deck tech quick. Makes it a little bit easier when I edit the videos and stuff. Because I do add a raw one, but... Alright, hold on. Alright, we got Yasharn Implacable Earth. When Yasharn enters the battlefield, you search your library for both a basic forest and a basic plains, reveal those cards, put them in your hand, then shuffle. Players can't sacrifice non-land permanents or to cast spells or activate abilities, or they can't pay life either. This stops treasure tokens, this stops paying life. Story of the Councils, most unfair card in like any card game. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tap. When a creature enters, you gain 1 life. You're only your opponents. Swords Plowshares, remove a creature, they gain life equal to its power. Completely unfair. Like, this is a very strong deck. Haywire Might, when it dies, you gain 3 life. Pay a green and sacrifice it. It can kill a non-creature artifact or enchantment. Or it exiles it, actually. Delighted Halfling, it adds a colorless. And you can add 1 mana of any color, spend it on legendaries, and then they can't be countered. Gilded Goose makes a food and is a mana dork as long as you sacrifice foods. He can make any color, and he can make himself foods by paying 1 green and 1 and tapping himself. He can make a food. Blind Obedience. The extort cost is you can pay a white anytime we play a spell because we can't pay the green for it. Anytime we play a spell, we can pay an extra white and drain them for 1. So that means they lose 1, we gain 1. Artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Also screws over treasure tokens pretty hard. Destroy Evil. Choose 1. Destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. Destroy target enchantment. The toughness would be the second number. You see the first number to the left? Or, yeah, the number to the left is power. Number to the right is toughness. Lion Stash. Exile a target card from a graveyard. If it's a permanent, put a counter on him. Equipped creature gets 1/1 count, or 1/1 for each 1/1 counter on Lion Stash. Reconfigure means he's a creature and a equipment at the same time. Or not the same time, he's either or, but he is both. Lost to Legend. I've been trying this card out in this list. It seems pretty tight. Put target non-land historic permanent into its owner's library, 4th from the top. Historic permanents are artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. Sagas is a card type. I think we might have one on the list. Remorseful Cleric is just a 2/1 with flying. You can sacrifice it, exile the graveyard. Your opponent's graveyard. Reprobation. Enchant creature. Enchant creature loses all abilities as a coward and has a base power and toughness of 0/1. So it turns it into like a literal nothing. Probably one of the strongest 2-mana removals in the entire game. Revoke Existence. Exile target artifact or enchantment. This card is really strong. Swift Response. Destroy target tapped creature. Again, this card is pretty damn strong. Back to Nature. Destroy all enchantments. If you hate enchantment decks, play this card because you win the game against them with that card. Bite Down. It's one of the blue or the green fight spells. Well, it's not a fight spell, it's a bite spell, so it doesn't actually, they don't fight each other, it's just the creature deals damage equal to its power to it. So it doesn't kill it back. We have like 80 of these. You'll see how many in this list we have 2 of them, but there's literally probably about 8 of these now. So just pick one. This one's probably the best one, Cosmic Hunger, as far as these types of spells are concerned, because it includes battles, which is a different card type. Gala Greeters. Whenever a creature comes into play, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. You put a 1 counter on it, create a tapped treasure. Can't use it right away, which is fair, or you gain 2 life. Prosperous Innkeeper. You get a treasure when he comes into play. Whenever another creature comes into the battlefield under our control, we gain a life. Adeline. She has Vigilance, and her power is equal to all the creatures that we have. And then whenever we attack, we get a 1/1 white human that's tapped and attacking. Archon of Emeria says, each player can't cast more than 1 spell per turn. Non-basic lands your opponent control enter battlefield tap. Has Flying. Flying can't be blocked by creatures without flying or reach. So it's a form of evasion. Vigilance means that the attacking doesn't cause them to turn sideways. And when they turn sideways, that's called tapped, because they're tapped and they're tired. That's what tapped means. Like you're tired or you're resting. You're already tapped out for the day. You're done. You don't want to do anything else. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. So any of those free cast decks, this guy shuts down pretty hard. Sacrifice Boromir. Warden of the Tower. Creatures you control gain indestructible. And then the Ring tempts you. And the Ring tempts you is a whole different thing. I'm not going to go into it. You can just read it yourself. But there's a whole set. It's like a set mechanic. Set mechanics are like mechanics in one set only. The Ring tempts you is a pretty cool mechanic, but we're not really playing him for that, so that's why I'm not going to go into it. Divine Purge. Exile all artifacts and creatures with mana value 3 or less. We perpetually gain. The spell costs 2 more to cast, and this permanent enters the battlefield tapped. As long as each one of them remains exiled, the owners may play it. So it's kind of like a delayed board wipe. Well, I say a delayed board wipe because they can get the stuff back, but it's also expensive. It's gone for a while. Forsake the Worldly. Exile target artifact or enchantment. Cycling 2. Flying. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tap. So it's 1/2 of this card. Or no, non-basic lands your opponent controls enters battlefield tap. But yeah, this guy taps creatures. That's pretty good. That means they can't block right away, which is pretty nuts. Lorraine the Third Path. Vigilance. When it enters, destroy a target artifact or enchantment. You can tap it, and you and target opponent each draw a card. Minutes of Containment. Basically, you equip it to a permanent, a non-land permanent, and it turns it into a treasure token. I think this is a really good form of removal. Slaughter Strong is you pick creatures or a creature with power 4 or less and sacrifice everything else. It's a board wipe, but you do get to keep like 1 or 2 things behind. depending on like what you depending on like the power of your creatures and the power of their creatures. You could pick like 4 1/1s and then everything else dies, or you can pick 1 4/4 or 1 4x or whatever, or 2 2/2s or something. That's basically how that works. When Spark Rupture enters the battlefield, draw a card. Each Planeswalker basically becomes a creature with the amount of loyalty counters that it had on it. So it shuts off Planeswalkers, is what it does. Fairy's Protection. Until your next turn, your life total can't change and you gain protection from everything. All permanents you control phase out. Phase out means that they are treated like they don't exist. They don't leave the battlefield in any way, they just are technically not there. So like ETBs don't happen again. They don't go into a different zone. So no things that like care about something going into a different zone happen. Phase out just means they just are treated like they don't exist. Urza Silex. Pay 4 and exile it. Each player chooses 6 lands they control. Destroy all other permanents. This includes lands, so if you like hate super hyper ramp lists like I do, like because I really hate those lists like a lot, you play this card, and then you can play 2 and you can search a Planeswalker like as that effect's going off. So if you pay 6, you blow up everything besides 6 lands and get a Planeswalker into your hand. While get recovery, it's a green land on one side, it returns a card for 3 mana on the other side. Nice thing about this is it's target card, so it can grab anything. Cultivate is a ramp spell. It grabs 2 basic lands, you put one into the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand, so you got your land drop for next turn. Garup's Uprising. When it enters, if you have a creature with power 4 or greater, you draw a card. Creatures you control have trample. Means that if I were to have a creature with trample, it deals 4 damage to a 2/2. Usually most of that damage just floats away and goes nowhere. But if it has trample, that damage can't be prevented, so it goes to the opponent or the Planeswalker. So instead of just making that damage disappear, it doesn't disappear anymore. And then when a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, you draw a card. And then Gwenna, Eyes of Gaia, add 2 mana of any combination of colors. Spend this to only cast creature spells or activate the abilities of creatures. And then when you cast a creature spell with power 5 or greater, you put a 1/1 counter on this dude and untap him. This card is absolutely mental, especially as a commander. This guy is kind of like borderline unfair. Besides the fact that he's 1 color. Kalini Ambush, it's a fight. So when creatures fight, they deal damage to each other at the same time. It's green removal. And then Kalini Territory is a green land. But it comes into play tapped all the time, so you gotta be careful with that. Topari Stomper. Enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. It can't attack or block unless you have 7 or more lands. Tranquil Frillbrack. Enters the battlefield. You may pay 1 green up to 3 times. When you pay this cost 1 or more times, you choose that many. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Exile target player's graveyard. You gain 4 life. Night of Autumn. You choose one of the effects. Put 2 1/1 counters on Night of Autumn. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. You gain 4 life. Day of Judgment. Blow up all creatures. Pretty simple. Depopulate. Each player who controls a multicolored creature draws a card, then destroy everything else. Or destroy all creatures. Felidar Retreats. When a land comes into play, either you make a 2/2 cat, or you give your whole team a 1/1 counter and Vigilance. Vigilance means they can attack without tapping, so they can attack and block in the same turn cycle. That's what makes Vigilance good. During your opponent's turn, this is Muriel Shield of the Argive. During your opponent's turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifact creatures or enchantments. Whenever Muriel Shield of the Argive attacks, create X 1/1 soldier count or artifact creature tokens, where X is the number of soldiers you control. This card's pretty nuts. It can get pretty out of hand. If you actually play it in a true dedicated soldiers list, this card is absolutely mental. But this card like stops counter spells, and it stops stuff from happening on your turn. Mainly, it stops counter spells. That's what you want to stop. Is combat tricks and counter spells is basically the main of what it stops. Fade from History. Each player who controls an artifact or enchantment creates a 2/2 bear. And then you exile all artifacts and enchantments. So if you're up against enchantment lists, this card can like win you the game pretty much against them. Or at least start the ball rolling on it. Guardian Project. Basically in Brawl, the way this card works, since you don't have any more than one of each card in your deck, Guardian Project always draws you a card. That's basically what it does. Because what it reads is, whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if you don't have the same name in your graveyard, you draw a card. Questing Beast. Vigilance, Death Touch, Haste. Can't be blocked with power 2 or less. I'm going to call that ability Bulldoze. Combat damage that would be dealt by creatures you control can't be prevented. So this includes protection. This stops protection with the combat damage part of protection. And even like Teferi's, if we were to use Teferi's protection and then they had a questing beast, he couldn't, the damage couldn't be prevented, but Teferi's protection allows their life to not be changed. So, but if they were to use what's called a fog effect, because fog prevents combat damage, he stops fog effects and other little incremental prevention of damage. It usually comes from fog effects. And then whenever he deals combat damage to an opponent, he also deals the same amount of damage to a planeswalker. So he can kill an opponent and their planeswalkers at the same time. Cavalier of Dawn has Vigilance. When he enters the battlefield, you blow up a non-land permanent, give him a 3/3 golem. When he dies, you return target artifact or enchantment card from graveyard to your hand. Cleansing Nova, simple. Pay 5, choose 1. Destroy all creatures or destroy all artifacts and enchantments. Doomscar, destroy all creatures. Foretell means you can pay 2 and then pay the foretell cost, so you can kind of pay the mana in installments. Pretty good effect. Hellish Norm, Mother Machines, is probably one of the most unfair cards that was printed this year. This card is an absolute menace. Has Vigilance. It's 4/7 for 5 mana, so it's huge. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers an additional time, and then anything that enters the battlefield on your opponent's control doesn't trigger at all. Elspeth Conquers Death. This is a saga. The way sagas work, you read them one from another, and then you start from the top, unless it has the keywords read ahead, which you can pick one then. But here we go. Exile target permanent your opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. Sweet. 9 creature spells your opponent's cast cost 2 more to cast until your next turn. Awesome. Kind of shuts off counter spells. Board wipes get a little bit harder to cast. Anything besides a creature gets harder to cast. It's a lot of stuff. That's 5 different card types. Because there's creatures, planeswalkers, enchantments, artifacts, instants, and sorceries. So. And then you return target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to the battlefield, put a 1/1/1 counter on it, which raises its stats, or if it's a planeswalker, it gets an extra loyalty counter. This card's absolutely insane. Definitely, if you play white, you should probably run this card. This card will always be good. Always. Silverback Elder. Whenever you cast a creature spell, choose 1. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Like top 5 cards of the library. Put a land from among them onto the battlefield tap. Put the rest of the bottom of the library, or you gain 4 life. That's whenever you cast a creature spell. So the instant you're in the act of playing it, and it goes on what's called the stack, his effect triggers. Tendershoot Dryad has Ascend, which is it's a set mechanic, and when you have 10 or more permanents, you gain the city's blessing for the rest of the game. So as long as you hit 7 lands, 3 creatures, you get the city's blessing. Even if you lost all your creatures and only had 8 lands from your next land drop, you'd still have the city's blessing. At the beginning of your upkeep, you create a 1/1 set pulling creature token, so you just make a 1/1. If you have the city's blessing, they're 3/3s instead. The thing is this activates every single turn cycle on each player's turn. So this guy pukes out a lot of creatures really, really fast. Fall of the Thrawn says destroy all lands. Then each player returns 2 lands from their graveyard to the battlefield. You can really cheese this card and do kind of like unfun things with it. We're not doing that in this list, but I play this because if everybody can play ramp and play like 80 billion lands, then I'm playing land destruction and they can get over it. Especially like really fair land destruction, because this resets everybody and they reset before you do. So it's not like it's unfair. Alright. Farewell. Choose one or more. Exile all artifacts, exile all creatures, exile all enchantments, exile all graveyards. It's unilateral, so that blows up your stuff too. But it's exile, so it gets past indestructible. That's basically the benefit of exile. Is it ignores dies effects, because it doesn't cause them to trigger. If it says this creature dies, if you exile it, it doesn't trigger at all, and then it ignores indestructible. And then planar cleansings destroy all non-land permanents. So it blows up everything besides lands. This spell can't be countered, so if there was a counter spell like counter this spell, you can't do that to this. And it has trample and hexproof. Hexproof means it can't be targeted by our opponents. Trample, its damage bashes through. Kogla, when it enters the battlefield, it fights a creature, so it's removal. Then when it attacks, it blows up artifacts or enchantments. Its bottom part we rarely ever use because we don't have humans in this list, but you can pay the 1 green and 1 and return target human you control to its owner's hands, and then he gains indestructible. Because he's a playoff of King Kong. You know, like King Kong always like found the girl and then protected the girl. So he's a playoff of that. Torvar's Hunter Master. Enters, makes 2 wolf tokens. Cool. Daybound. Nightbound is it changes from day to night. If somebody doesn't cast spells, it becomes nighttime, and then all the werewolves awaken. And then when he enters the battlefield, if it's nighttime or attacks, he makes the 2 wolves again, and then he can force other wolves to fight creatures. So he's just here because he's a 6-mana 3-body, at least, at bare minimum. That's why he's here. The rest of his effects don't really matter. Like, if it becomes nighttime, awesome. If not, so be it. Vorinclex. This card's also really strong. This is probably, like, right behind Elish Norn on, like, how strong this card is. This card's also pretty unfair. Has trample and haste. Haste means they can act right away. They can attack and tap, so they can act right away. Most of the time you have summoning sickness. That's why when I played those creatures before, they were kind of like flashing gray. He doesn't do that. And then if one more counters we put on a permanent we control, we put twice as many counters. If it's one or less, or if any counters would be put on our opponent's permanents, they put half as many on. Rounded down, so they can put 0 on something. So that shuts off sagas, that shuts off 1/1 counters list, and it shuts off planeswalkers. Planeswalkers come out like pretty much inert. Immortal Sun. Players can't activate Planeswalkers' loyalty abilities. That pretty much shuts off most Planeswalkers. Unless they have a static effect, it shuts off the Planeswalker. Then at the beginning of your draw step, we draw an additional card. Spells cost us 1 less to cast. That means everything that we play costs us 1 less. And creatures get 1/1. 1 attack, 1 defense. Titan of Industry, Reach Trample. Reach means he can block things with flying. He pretends that he has flying when he's blocking. That's all that Reach does. And then when he enters the battlefield, we choose 2. Try to target artifact enchantment, gain 5 life, create a 4/4 Rhino creature token, or put a shield counter on something you control. A shield counter would be when the first time it would die or take damage, you remove the shield counter instead. So even if you ping him for 1 damage, then you can get rid of the shield counter. It's a good way to get around it. But Exile gets around shield counters as well. That's, again, another set mechanic that'll probably come back because it's pretty fair. I kind of wish we could see it some more. Ondu Inversion. It's a white land that always enters the battlefield tap. Just gives us a white. But if it doesn't, we can pay 8, blow up all non-land permanents. Overwhelming Splendor. Enchant player. Creatures enchanted player control lose all abilities that have base power and toughness 1/1, so they're pretty much nothing. Enchanted player can't activate loyalty abilities, or can't activate abilities that aren't mana abilities or loyalty abilities. So they can still use planeswalkers, but this basically just shuts off all creatures, is basically what it does. Is the easy way. It shuts off all creatures besides mana dorks. They can still cast stuff. So, but creatures tend to make up a lot of people's lists, so that card's pretty Sometimes some people get mad about that, but it's whatever. It's 8 mana, so get over it. Okay, and then we got Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger. Trample, he's a 7/6. Whenever we tap a land for mana, it gives us twice as much mana. Whenever our opponent taps a land for mana, they tap down for 2 turns instead of just 1. And then we did a mana base. So We're gonna play this deck for about 30 minutes, so I appreciate you coming by, viewer. I really do. Vivek's at the file. Playing Omnath Locus of Creation. This guy's 4 colors. He's a pretty cool commander. I think he's kind of unfair because he's a white. He's like a landfall card. This card actually got banned in Standard for a while there. Then they changed it, brought him back because he used to only be 4 mana, and now he's 5. They did this, and they changed it to where he draws a card no matter what. Because there's like a stipulation to him drawing a card. They kind of just let him draw one. So. He's really like strong. Like I said, this card got banned. Because when you play lands, you play your first one, you gain 4 life. Then the second one, you add one of each color of his colored manas right here. Add one of each. And then if it's the third time, he deals 4 damage to each opponent. He's pretty, like I said, he's pretty ridiculous. One player or commander. Grab 2 lands. That's another thing that makes this commander so good. Is when we grab lands like this, not only do we make sure that we have land drops, we're not top decking lands. That's what makes this. That's part of what makes this guy good too. Is when you play him, it's always a draw too. And when your commanders die, or if they get removed in any way, shape, or form, and they return the command zone, because they can always do that, they always cost 2 more to be played. He basically ignores that. Because you play him, and then he just doesn't care. And then you just, you recast him. We'll just keep making the Gala Greeters bigger because we don't really need treasure. We can't use them anyways because these guys with the treasure tokens and stuff, he's a bit of a non-bow. Because you can't use treasures with this guy anyways, as we found out in that last match. got him, viewer. Like I said, this Yasharn deck's pretty strong. I have a few other versions of this. There's a lot of ways you can go with this guy because he's just so generally good. Like, he's probably, like, the best commander I've pretty much ever made. Because this guy's, he's just good. He's honestly like an S-tier commander. You can play whatever the hell you want with him. He can make it work because he gives you all the mana that you need in the world and then some. So... Pacer. Yeah, I think it'll work. But the only cards I would say that are like mandatory with this guy is little bits of ramp like Cultivate and maybe a few other cards. Just so you can make sure you get to 4 mana. Because once you get to 4 mana, it doesn't matter anymore. Then you're literally cooking with gas. You know, it's like cooking now with gas. We're about to get Mortal Sun down here, and we're about to rocket really far ahead. Again, like I said, this guy is actually kind of a really good commander. So if you were to like invest in any like you had like a limited amount of rares or whatever, out of any commanders I personally play on the frequent, this is the one I tell you to craft the most. Easily is Yasharn. This card is bonkers. You can play anything with them. Literally, no matter what, if it's a green and white card and a green and white deck in Commander, he can play it. And he can probably play it better than 90% of the other stuff that you're going to be playing. And he stops this deck too, because you can't sacrifice non-land permanents. So even his little stacks effect is like crazy good too. Because every time we play him, we grab all these extra lands, and then we never have to draw them. Yeah, you can have that land. Because this card, whenever you discard a permanent, she steals them. Basically what she does. That kind of falls apart though. It's another good thing about Yasharn. It doesn't really need to be Like, you can play him, like, twice, and then once you get through your lands, you can just sit in the command zone for the rest of the game, and you don't even have to care. And you're, like, obviously you play him again, but you know what I mean. I'm telling you, this commander's freaking cracked. Like, for real. Probably, like, literally, out of the Zendikar Rising, like, commanders in that set, easily the strongest one. This is cool. Forgot about that card existing. Like I said, we already got 2 wins so far, so I play like 3 or 4 more games, depending. Games are pretty quick with this guy because he's just strong. He's incredibly strong. Again, you can play him any way you want. Plays Divernod. This guy doubles death effects. When stuff dies, it happens twice. It's a really cool art for him. And then you can exile, I think it's 3 creature cards from your graveyard, and you put an indestructible counter on them. Indestructible counter just means he has indestructible. It's just if it's considered an indestructible counter, there's a few cards that interact with those. Because it's a counter that gives keywords. They were introduced in Ikoria, so they're relatively new. They're like 2 years old now, but they weren't around forever. High Twitch is pretty good. I see a lot of those played, and these get played quite a bit back in Standard. That's pretty popular. And I mean, it's because it's solid. Because Learn, we have Brawl. When we're playing Brawl, we don't have what's called a sideboard. A sideboard is a modulation of 7 to 15 cards that if you play what's called best of 3, where you play 3 matches instead of just you play 3 matches instead of just 1. You can swap out cards. And what Learn does is if the card type is what's called a lesson, you can grab lessons after you learn, instead of because either Learn is looting, you discard a card, draw a card, or whatever, and lessons are they're usually kind of weakish cards, but they're decent enough. Because if you learn, you can straight up grab them. No attacks. Kinda hold back. Wipes the board with Meathook Massacre. Get our commander back. The red hair don't care. Finally get to our gardening project, that's fine with me. Again, it's kind of unfair, we're up against like Flat. This card is absolutely insane. When use Swords Plowshare, they gain 8 life from that because this has a buttload of power. It's an 8/3 for 5, which is massive. I haven't seen that yet. Put counters. A shield counter. Kind of go around them. They only got one creature. One creature can block one guy. Something to keep in mind. Unless it states otherwise, which is a very rare effect. There's, like, I think in this game, I think there's only one creature, possibly two, that can block more than one creature. There's, like, some dude, it's like a 1/5 can block, like, more than one creature, and then there's, like, it's like a tree folk guy. I think he can block more than one creature. Really kind of in a bad spot. Okay. You'll see what we're doing here, viewer. Good game. Since he had 0 toughness, he can't absorb any of the trample damage. Alright, this will be the last one. So 3 wins with this deck in a row. Which is to be expected. This deck is very freaking strong. And we went up against some pretty weak decks. Like, literally, this commander is definitely S tier. He definitely needs to go up against the strong stuff. Because him just getting you lands and basically enabling you to play the game, and his stacks effect, which actually happens to be quite freaking good. You know? Like this deck right here. This is the type of stuff he needs to go up against. This one we're not... I don't think we're in a shoe-in for victory against this. This is Tattoo of a Benthic Druid. This card is freaking strong too. It's usually is like a Simic ramp deck that pukes out a bunch of lands. That's why we got the land destruction, the Urza Silex, and the Fall of the Thron. It's literally for this deck. You'll see it if they go off, viewer. Hopefully they don't. Because if they do, they win. They're very inevitable. Like, once they go off, once their ball is rolling, their snowball is like this. Most other decks is like this, theirs is like this. So... Doesn't seem like much, but trust me, viewer, it's about to go. Fingers crossed, viewer, that they don't go too crazy now. Only got 7 mana. They can board wipe us because they got blue. Blue's got a lot of bounce everything board wipe. And they lose. Good job. Let's go. Luckily, we ended up going first, and they didn't go off too crazy. Because I'm telling you, that deck is... If it gets going, it wins the game. It really honestly does. It's very inevitable. That's the type of deck it is. It can sometimes fall flat on its face. That rarely ever happens, though. Anyways, viewer, we're going to call it there. But to be fair, Yasharn is probably the best Selesnya commander in the current Magic Arena game as of right now. Card's absolutely cracked. He's one of the best commanders, period. Because green and white are 2 excellent colors. They have the ability to deal with pretty much any deck halfway decently. And with Yasharn at the helm, you can play whatever the hell you want. And it's completely 100% okay. So I'm going to go ahead and call it there. You have a wonderful night. Stay safe, drive safe, be safe.